Hi guys, welcome back to another biology video. Today's topic will be discussing types of transport and how they work. So what is transport? Transport is the movement of substances across a cell membrane, and basically, as I'm showing right here, it can be any sort of particles. However, the way that they diffuse or move across the membrane is through passive diffusion, facilitated diffusion, or active transport, which I will get into soon. So as I mentioned previously, there are several types. However, the first one, which is passive diffusion, does not require ATP, and under this one falls two categories. So of course we have passive diffusion and facilitated diffusion. We also have active transport, which, as the name suggests, active transport will need ATP in order to happen. So here I have diffusion. For this one, the solute moves across the membrane with the concentration gradient. For this type of diffusion, which is sometimes referred to as simple diffusion, the passive movement of the solute follows the concentration gradient from high concentration to low concentration, as I have depicted here. In order for this to happen, we must have permeability, and usually the diffusing solutes are nonpolar and small. Some examples of this are oxygen, carbon dioxide, or some hydrocarbons depending on the cell. Next, I have facilitated diffusion here. Facilitated diffusion still falls under the passive transport umbrella, which basically means that still no ATP is required. What is required, however, is the integral protein, which is right here. And basically this integral protein helps the particles move down and into the cell membrane. Right here we have little phospholipids right here. And usually chemical or electrostimulus is needed in order for the channel to open and close. The second type of transport, as mentioned earlier, is active transport. And as stated previously, active transport does require ATP, so right here is where the ATP would act, and this ATP helps open the integral protein, which is right here. Kind of depends on the cell. Sometimes we have little vesicles that also perform the same job, and again, it's kind of facilitated diffusion. It helps the little particles go from outside the cell and into the cell. As mentioned previously, this ATP kind of sticks on here onto the cell, onto the protein, and kind of helps it open. ATP also builds a concentration of H ions across the membrane, which will be extremely helpful in photosynthesis and cell respiration, which we shall get into on another video. So as a little bonus that I'm adding to the lesson, we have endocytosis and the other three types that fall under endocytosis. And although this isn't necessarily also types of transports, they also are part of most of the curriculum in biology. So I figured since the content that is going to be covered for this one is kind of small, I'd add it to this video. So firstly, we have endocytosis, which is material that is taken into the cell, usually via the infolding of the cell membrane. So right here, usually we'd have the cell membrane, which would open right here, kind of like in on itself, and then these particles right here would then move into the infolding and usually end up somewhere inside the cell where it is needed. So next we have pinocytosis, which is the root basically means drink cell. And in this one, the cell membrane engulfs extracellular fluid, usually from the cytoplasm. So all of this would just go in here. And basically, it's the ingestion of liquid by the cell, and it usually happens through small vesicles from the cell membrane of the cell that kind of open up and then take the extracellular fluid and then take it down into the cell where it will be used, or for whatever processes that the cell may need to carry out with the extracellular fluid that it took in. So here I have exocytosis, which is the process by which cells move waste and or large molecules out of the cell. This process actually is part of active transport, or uses active transport, and vesicles usually do this. As mentioned before, the Golgi apparatus deals with this type of stuff. So they tag the molecules that need to leave the cell, and the cell basically flushes it out. And the cells that are leaving usually waste, and pretty much all our cells do this when the cell no longer needs a certain molecule inside it, or when a process has used all its nutrients and no longer needs whatever is inside. So that'll be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!